Welcome to WagerTalk's Last Call. I'm Kelly Stewart. Kelly in Vegas and all of your favorite social channels. We've got a busy day today. We're talking UFC, of course, with our guy, Kyle Anthony. Carmine, Bianco. Well, this is a good question. I thought soccer was over, but apparently it is not. So Carmine's going to tell us which soccer plays he likes today. And of course, Adam's batting cleanup. You get 30 minutes of him to ask all the questions you want. You guys know the drill. You have a question for one of our handicappers, drop it in the chat and we will try to get with you. Kyle Anthony requested to go first. I don't know if that's because he's important or he's super busy. Kyle, talk to me about this UFC card and what you've got going on over at WagerTalk.
Yeah, so great card here tonight. Got a 5% up this Saturday night. 7-0 run on those. Number one at WagerTalk. Overall on the ROI side of things. So feeling good about it. Got 5 plays up. So go check it out. But this is a great card and a really good card from a betting perspective.
Yeah, I agree. It almost is like the undercard is better than the main event, but that's just a personal thing. Just out of curiosity, I've had some friends. This is my question before we get to yours. I had some friends that texted me last night. I just got back in from Italy. I went to bed early, woke up this morning. It was like, tell me why I shouldn't bet Patty the Batty. And I said, well, listen, I haven't even looked. I don't handicap UFC, but it appears he's already dropped 70 cents. That's the number one reason why you can't bet Patty. Kyle, what do you do in terms of handicapping thresholds when we see an underdog just get absolutely clobbered like that?
Yeah, I think we all talk about that here on the shows is why you got to be an all access client to begin with. Kind of jumping on some of these lines. We're really trying to get ahead of the market move. And really, that's really where I do find a lot of my success personally is that's why my ROI is so high is we're just not looking to, either slam 2 big favorites together or we're looking to just kind of jump on, Patty late after the number. So really with these, you really got to look at the market move. You really got to, once you make that assessment of the fighter that you like, you've really got to make the move. And these things, especially on pay-per-views, they really move. I mean, these have been moving, and there's some that we will talk about throughout this, I guess, throughout the show here. But there's just been some that, wow, this line's wide, and all of a sudden you see it come in, you wait a day, and things are moving. So this is really a spot where this card again, and I always say it on pay-per-views, you gotta jump on these early. I know there are limits early on some of these, definitely. When we were even talking about Patty even before you got on the air, the plus 150 and things like that, very, very small limits overall. So as it does get closer, they are getting, wider on the limits. But, you've got to jump on these. They do move quickly.
All right. Talk to me about Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah, so this one here, we've got the current champion in Leon Edwards here. He's minus 260. On the comeback here, we've got Bilal Muhammad around the plus 210 mark. Now, this was a fight that took place back in 2021, which was a fight that only lasted basically a round and change, where the first round, Leon landed 19 strikes compared to Bilal's 8. And then there was an eye poke in the second round, fight over, no contest. And here we are now doing it over for a lot more at stake. But when you look at this fight here, the big thing that really sticks out on the Bilal side is obviously going to be his wrestling. We know what he's looking to do. He's going to look to cage push you up against the fence, hold you there, wet blanket you, really smother any of the offense that you can get off. And that's really just a rinse and repeat for him. And it has worked. Now, his takedown ability is fairly good. The actual statistic-wise of it is not the greatest. 35% takedown success rate, while Leon does support a 70% takedown defense rate. And I think that should hold up here. You're definitely going to have some scrambling moments. And early on, I think that Bilal is really going to sell out for the takedowns. But I do think that Leon can possibly keep this standing. But the big thing for me here, when going back and really analyzing their past fights, since that fight in 2021 with Leon Edwards, yes, Bilal has been on a 5-fight win streak, but I got to be honest, this was not the greatest run to the title if you're looking at it here. And you've got 3 of the 5 fighters that he fought were wrestlers with limited striking. And, you go back, you got Damian Maia he beat, who was 40 years old and has absolutely shit striking, beats him. Sean Brady he beat in Abu Dhabi. Sean Brady looked exhausted after that first round, gassed. Bilal gets the victory. And then even Gilbert Burns, which was a recent one where Burns hurt his shoulder in the first round. It's a 5-round fight. and he does last, but Bilal gets the victory. But basically, Burns fought with one arm for 5 rounds. And then even the other two, not to dive into too much, but the other two were, Wonder Boy Thompson, who was a 40-year-old kickboxer, so very good path for Bilal in his wrestling. And then even Luque, he beat Luque is 1-3 out of his last 4. These are just not the highest level fighters that really are setting him up for success in this fight tonight. And you look at Leon. Leon fought over his last 3 fights this exact prototype of a fighter, a boxer that's going to wrestle. And you look at it, the 2 guys that he beat really are better, I believe, than Bilal. He beat Kamaru Usman twice. Yes, that first one was close, and then the head kick hurt around the world, so he did grab that. But the second one, he went out there, defended some takedowns, took Usman down, really looked good, got the win. And even the most recent one against Colby Covington, a relentless presser wrestler. He was able to work from the outside, defend the takedowns, and get the victory. And I think that's really setting him up for a lot of success here. Obviously, it's why this line is where it is. But I do believe that he's going to be able to use his 2-inch reach advantage, his 3-inch height advantage, and really overall Bilal's striking is shit. He does not have striking. He's got some good low kicks. Besides for that, it's just nothing great that he does on the feet that I see. He's going to have to sell up for the takedowns to find any success. And that does bring me to my play here, which basically I do like Leon in this spot. But if you're looking at it, Bilal, over his last 15 fights, 13 have went to the judges' scorecards. Out of Leon's last 15 fights, 11 went to the scorecards here. So I do like Leon Edwards via points. It's around plus 120 right now. I think it's a good spot and a very likely path for him to get the victory tonight.
All right, very nice. If you guys have a question for Kyle, he has been crushing #1 in ROI at WagerTalk this year. 5% plays, 7-0 over at WagerTalk.com. Kyle, Mohammed, I'm going to screw this up, Mokev versus Manel Cape.
Makayev, I give you credit for. You just flew in. It's okay. It's okay.
So we got Mohammed. I'm going to forever butcher these names. They are so. It's like tennis and UFC. Just I don't even want to try.
Tennis worse. Tennis looks worse. Tennis looks bad, man. I've scrolled through some of those names. I'm like, forget it. Forget it. When it's at like 15 letters, 16 letters, I'm out.
Pronunciation. It's so hard. It's funny. But at this point, it's just now part of who I am. I'm going to screw up the names. So let's break down this UFC fight.
All right, so we've got Mohammed Makayev here. He's minus 175. On the comeback, you've got Manel Cape. He's plus 145. Now, this line opened around a pick'em price, which is kind of crazy here. And actually, some books did have Makayev as a slight dog at like plus 105, somewhere around there. Money has consistently come in big time on Makayev here, and I get it. 11-0, 23 years old, a rising prospect, a lot that really we've seen looks good on him. Where you've got Manel Cape, he's missed weight a couple times. Just those kinds of things are definitely showing maybe some motivational things kind of going on outside of the cage and training, whatever it may be. But, Makayev does have the wrestling. He can push forward. He can look to really smother some offense. He's going to be relentless with it. And that is a big part for him here, that he can find success. The issue here for me, when you go back and you watch a lot of his fights, is he has zero top control. His top control is very bad. He can look for takedowns. He can relentlessly push that pace, look to, cage push you and get you down. But he is just not strong enough. And I think that's a big issue for him here, is where, even in past fights, is where, he just doesn't have the strength, the physicality to really keep you there and really have that heavy top pressure, where a lot of guys who are very technical on the ground can find success, at least just getting back, scrambling back to their feet. And I think that's where he's going to find success. Now, you have a 41% takedown success rate for Makayev. On the other side, you've got a 77% takedown defense rate for Cape. And I think he's the more athletic, more explosive fighter overall. And when you're talking striking, it's really not even close. I mean, if this fight somehow plays out in the feet, I do believe there will be a lot of scrambling going on. But Cape is just way more higher when you're talking about pure striking, pure distance management, range finding, kicks, combinations. All of those things will absolutely highly favor him. And this is another spot here where you look at, the actual, past few fights, and the last 2 wins for Makayev were not good looks at all. 2 fights ago, he fought Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott is a journeyman fighter, scrappy guy nonetheless. But you look at that fight on 2 judges' scorecards after the first 2 rounds, he was beating Makayev 2-0 heading into the final round. And that was where almost people thought, hey, fraud check, this guy's getting fraud checked here. And he does find credit to him. He finds a submission in that third round, but not the greatest look. And then even his most recent fight against Alex Perez, who, another guy, wrestler, tough guy, but Makayev was 3 for 20 on takedown attempts, and a very close fight, a fight that I do believe that Alex won. Yes, they probably, gave it to Makayev, trying to, keep that undefeated streak going. Plus, Alex came in on short notice. I just think this is a lot of bad things for him. And then lastly, we do now at this point see that judging is more judged on damage over control. And that's something that in my capping and anybody's capping for UFC has to change, because the changing of what they really respect in the cage has changed. And now, you're going to have the damage of Cape going up against the control time of Makayev. And that's where the damage, I do think, comes from Makayev. I think he can land here. And if you even look statistically speaking, Makayev averages 1.5 significant strikes landed per minute, while Cape averages over 5 per minute. And I think that's where you're going to find a lot of success. Cage, working out of the cage, pushing, working at range. And I think the striking and all those things work well from here. So I kind of go against at this price here. I think that this should be a pick 'em. I think that's where this line should actually be. So you're looking at it now at a plus 145 on Cape. I think that's a very good price for him right now. And as well as I do like the knockout here. I think that's worth the sprinkle. Plus 475. I think that you've seen Makayev not really, his strikings, and he's very hittable. I think there's a lot of money to be made there. So if he pulls it out, I like that plus money there.
Couple plus money plays from Kyle Anthony. You mentioned you have 5 plays up for this UFC card over at WagerTalk.com. Can you get into those with a little more detail?
Yeah, so again, a 5% play up right now. That play, again, we're 7-0. We're feeling good about it. Even on our 4%ers, we're 14-5 for this year. So really feeling good about the spots that we have had. 5 plays up. I'm actually looking at another one that I may be adding to this pack here, another small exposure that I'm looking at. But besides for that, I'm feeling good. Grab it at WagerTalk.com, and we're going to keep it rolling. We're going to keep it rolling this Saturday night.
Love it, love it, love it. Kyle Anthony, our UFC expert here at WagerTalk.com. Appreciate your time. Guys, we're going to bring in Carmine, Bianco, and then Adam Trigger later on. So if you guys have a question for any of those guys, please drop it in the chat. Carmine, I thought soccer was over. We just had the Euros. What is going on?
Buongiorno, Bella. Come stai? I'm going to talk to you in Italian since you've been in Italy for oh my God, your trip just looked absolutely amazing. You and Ariel had one hell of a time. The Amalfi Coast, fantastic. I'm doing it next year, so I'm looking forward to it.
It was absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend it. If anybody has anything that they want to talk about in the chat, drop it, because you guys sure as hell aren't asking me any sports related questions. I will say this. The joke about the Italian wine being able to find something for like 30 euros, which is like 35 American, whatever, is definitely unmatched. And I will no longer be drinking Napa wine or consuming grapes outside of probably Italy or France. On that note, Carmine, let's get into some soccer.
Yeah. So, obviously the first 2 tournaments are done. The Euro started on the 14th. On the 18th, I believe, or the 20th, it was the Copa America, and this is the final one. This is the one, 47 teams in this tournament. They're all the MLS teams and the Liga MX teams from Mexico. 45 of them are in the group stages, which kicked off yesterday. 3 per group, 15 groups. 2 teams have byes. The Columbus Crew have a bye because they won the MLS Cup last season. And Club America of Mexico, they have a bye for having the most points over 2 seasons. There's 2 seasons a year in Mexico, the Clausura and the Apertura, which I think means opening and closing seasons. So they had the most points. So they get a first round bye as well, too. Kel, this is one of those tournaments. I talked about it yesterday on Wager Talk today with Steve Merrill and Teddy, that not a lot of MLS teams, other than sort of the cream of the crop, I think take this tournament as serious, just because it comes with about 4.5, 5 weeks left in the MLS season, where teams are are trying to get into playoffs. So having to play a mid-season tournament isn't always the best. Last year was the inaugural tournament. We saw a lot of teams kind of mail in the points in those ones. I gave out a couple plays yesterday on the show, and thankfully they both they both won on the show. But you look at it, and the first one I want to look at is the Inter Miami, because they are the defending champions of this one, and they're playing Mexican side Puebla. And I like the over in this one. Now, the first thing that people might think is, okay, well, Lionel Messi's not playing this game because he has an ankle injury from the Copa America. So he won't be playing. It's been confirmed by Tati Martinez, the manager of Inter Miami. And I don't even think he's going to play in the second game. If anything, maybe the knockout stages, they don't need to win this tournament. They've already won this tournament. They're trying to win the Supporters Shield, the MLS, which comes with a team with the most points. If you make it to the finals, you get to host the game. It's never predetermined who's going to host the MLS Cup finals. It goes to the team with the most points of the two that are in the finals. Have they missed Messi? No. Since he's been gone, they've gone 6-1, 6 wins, 1 loss. The one loss was an embarrassing one at Cincinnati, but six wins without him in 7 games, averaging exactly 2 goals scored per game. And they're playing a Mexican side that are their last 10 games, horrible form: 1 win, 1 draw, 8 losses, allowed 24 goals. Now you look at it, and you would think, well, the play is Miami, they're going to roll over them. The only problem here is Miami doesn't keep clean sheets. They allow scoring as well too. Their last 10 games, you have to go back 11 games to find the last shutout by this Inter Miami team winning a game 1-0. They've allowed goals in each of their last 10 games, and I think over 3 is the right one here. We saw plenty of scoring last night in all the games, with the exception of Minnesota and Seattle. That one was affected by a red card in the game, so teams play a little bit differently. But plenty of scoring, 3 or more goals in all of the games last night, with the exception of that Seattle Minnesota game. So I like the over 3 in this one.
Over 3 early game. Carmine, while we're waiting some questions in the chat, tell me what you got up over at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, and then I'm going to talk to you about another game, Kelly, because this one's going to be interesting for you. I think Dan might not like it, our producer, but 3 plays up in the Leagues Cup for tonight, including a 4% best bet total. Totals have been great since the start of the Euros on June the 14th, 39, 15, and 7, 72% with totals. When they're 3% or higher, that goes up to 82.6%, 19, 4, and 5 pushes there. And when they're 4% or higher, and that's 4% tonight, 13 and 2, 87% with totals in these tournaments. Kel, you always say if something's not working, you got to pivot away from it. Well, early on, sides in the tournaments weren't going well. I was eking out a small profit, and then I decided to switch to totals because they were. I was running the numbers, and they were doing very, very well. And there's been a bunch of totals on my cards of late, and they're hitting. So why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is my theory on that one. Now I want to talk. So those 3 plays go tonight. You can get them over at WagerTalk. $29 gets you all 3 plays. I may add one more to that, so it could turn out to be a 4-pack. Now here's an interesting one. This is an all MLS game, Eastern Conference game. The 2 Eastern Conference games yesterday are absolutely wild. DC and Atlanta played to a 3-3 draw after 90 minutes, and then it goes straight to penalties because they need a winner in each game. I think they went to 77 penalty shooters each. And then in the other game, Orlando easily disposed of Montreal like I thought they would, and won that game 4-1. So plenty of scoring. This is one where I'm not going to look at the total. I'm going to look at the side. It's Charlotte versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia is not having a great season at all, but somehow have pulled themselves with a couple of wins against bottom 5 teams. We have to remember that bottom 5 teams in the New England Rev and Nashville, they pulled themselves within 3 points of a playoff spot. And this is the thing I mentioned on yesterday's show. A lot of these teams who know they're not going to go very far in this tournament, sort of mail in the points. They just don't play like you expect them to play. They'd rather have the excuse me, the extra 7 to 14 days off, heal those wounds, those injuries, practice and get ready for the final push, the last 9 games of the season, trying to get into the playoffs. Philadelphia fits that mold. They're playing Charlotte, who went to Philadelphia back just a little over a month ago, June 22nd, and beat Philadelphia 2-0 in that game. And Charlotte's been a good team of late, 4-3-3 their last 10 games. The 3 losses to hot teams, Inter Miami, Houston, New York Red Bulls. You got to give them credit for the record that they have right now. You're getting half a goal with Charlotte to start this game. You can get plus a half, minus 125. So if Charlotte wins or the game is tied after 90 minutes, you cash that ticket. The only way you lose it is if Philadelphia wins within 90 minutes. And to use a phrase yesterday, that I used yesterday, I took my 9-year-old niece swimming, and then I took her to a frozen yogurt place, and I said, you can put anything on it. And she went straight to the sprinkles, Kelly, and she sprinkled pretty much the whole tray of sprinkles. So we are going to sprinkle the money line here with Charlotte at plus 245.
Who doesn't love sprinkles, Carmine? I mean,
Who doesn't love
obviously,
sprinkles?
I think it was our good friend VR that started the sprinkle on the money line. I love good outright under money line dogs. B Daddy says, salute Carmine Bianco. They're loving the Italian this morning. If you guys do have another question for Carmine, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, it's going to be a fast show. You guys think I want to leave Adam Trigger with almost 40 plus minutes? I don't. So if you guys have a soccer question, drop it for Carm. Carm, kind of walk me through while you have a few more minutes here on how your process is when determining which leagues you want to follow in soccer. Because just coming back from Europe, everywhere I went, there was just flags from whether it's a national team, whether it's a local team. I mean, there's just so many. When you click on the app, there is just so many leagues. It's almost like with college football, I try to pick like 5, but it seems like you're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, and I credit guys like Kevin Dolan and Pablo Slagaretos, who do a lot more of the South American soccer and some of the other leagues in Europe where they can find value in it. I focus on the top 5 leagues in Europe, which is obviously in England, the Premier League, Italy, Serie A, as you just experienced with the club teams. I'll get to there in a second. La Liga in Spain, Bundesliga in Germany, and then Ligue 1 in France. And the reason for that is there is much more data available at sites like Opta and some of these other sites on XG numbers and records that it's easier to build your own power ratings for these teams. I think the lesser ones is just not as much data on them, and if you don't have the data, you're a couple steps behind. So I focus on those ones, and then throughout the season, Kel, I will pare it down. If I look at the 5 leagues and I'm keeping track of my records, and I see that I'm not doing well in, let's say hypothetically La Liga in Spain, I shut it down. There's no reason for me to continue to release plays if I'm not earning enough profit that I think my clients should be getting. So you pare it down, you pivot, and I think you keep it to one thing. I think if you it's like trying to bet every game on the board. There's no way you can put enough work into betting every single game on the board. And in European football, there's about 400 games on the board each and every day during the busiest times. So those are the ones that I focus on, and of course the MLS here in North America, because I watch a lot of it, and I'm a season ticket holder as well too. So those are the 5 or 6 that I focus on, and I'm gonna have a great deal coming next week for the rest of the 2024 as far as the soccer seasons, because they kick off in 2 weeks in Europe. The Premier League, they all start within a 10-day period. All 5 leagues kick off middle of August. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a fantastic time. I'm looking for a huge run to go along with the NFL, Kelly, because NFL is back.
I love it. NFL is going to be back very shortly, but Carmine's going to get us through the home stretch of the next month or so. 39, 15, and 7. That is 72% on all of his total plays since early June. And he also shown an 89% profit on those days when his plays are rated 3% or higher. Right now, he has a Leagues Cup 3-pack, including a 4% total play up for Saturday night. WT.buzz /CB. We love ourselves some Carmine Bianco. I'll bet on anything as long as I can cash a ticket. So we appreciate all of his hard work through the Euros and going to get us to football season. Now let's bring in Adam Trigger. I'm going to put him on a stop clock, guys. If you guys are new to the show, you don't know what the buzzer is. We're going to do rapid fire. We're going to hit every single MLB game on the board. But Adam only gets 90 seconds per MLB game. And then, of course, he will take your questions if you have them. How's that sound, Adam? Are you excited? I know it kind of gives you a little bit of anxiety. You're on edge whenever our producer Dan hits that alarm.
I'm gonna amend this rule. I don't know if I have the ability to do that, but I'm gonna amend the rule. I think the 2 games I sent in the chat that were my feature ones, I should get a little bit more than 90 seconds, but then any other one I will keep under a minute.
Okay.
I feel like that's
fair enough. Okay, that's fair. So Adam Trigger is going to take 17 minutes to break down 2 games, Yankees, Red Sox, Marlins, Brewers. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Adam's been red hot in MLB, 33 and 14. Wow, been crushing 70% right now in Major League Baseball. So again, question for Adam, drop it. Adam, let's start off Yankees. Pretty much on the WagerTalk odds screen, -105 over the Red Sox.
Yeah, I got a wild stat for this one. Kelly, do you still identify as a White Sox fan? I haven't checked in with you on this in a while. Would you say your baseball team?
I don't identify as any baseball fan, and actually it's really funny. I just got invited to a Yankees game where they played the Rockies. So as a little kid, I liked the White Sox. And then my brother-in-law was a Rockies fan, obviously inaugural season. I was a little kid, and he took me to the rock pile. And I loved them because, of course, they were purple like K-State. And they weren't any good.
And relatively close to you, right? Isn't that relatively close to Kansas? Yeah. Yeah.
So it was good. And then I remember getting to go to a couple games when the starter jackets came out. He bought me a Rocky starter jacket. And then the White Sox were really good when I was in high school. And so then I was like, well, wait a minute. I actually used to love the White Sox. Let's go back to the White Sox. Had a Paul Konerko jersey. And then they won a World Series. And that was about the last time I cheered for the White Sox.
Well, I mean, you're leaving out a huge, Brett's a White Sox fan. So, that should count for something, too. I mean, that's, you know what I mean?
Brett's a White Sox fan because all of his family is Cubs fans. Just the same reason why he's a Packers fan, because they're all Bears fans. By default, I love going. I mean, I've been to a handful of White Sox games in the last decade, but to say I'm a fan anymore, to say I care. I mean, I bet this team a couple times as a favorite. Does that count?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we got off on a tangent. The only reason I brought it up is I think this stat is wild. Since June 15th, the White Sox are 9-26. The only team that they're worse than since June 15th is the Yankees, who are 10-23. I don't think anyone would just have that off the top of their head. That the Yankees since June 15th only have a better record than one team, and that is the lowly Chicago White Sox, who were down 8-0 in the first inning last night. And we'll talk about that later in the show. Some of that is because guys are on the IL. Giancarlo Stanton has missed almost that whole run, Jackson Dominguez. But you know what? Every team's got guys hurt at this point, especially with the Yankees. I don't want to hear it from the Yankees. You've got Juan Soto, you have Aaron Judge. That can't be an excuse, for that type of run. But now we're going to talk about why we should start buying the Yankees. Of course, Kelly, you didn't think I was just going to come on here and bring that up and then not try to convince everyone to bet the Yankees and start playing on the Yankees after this horrible run. That's what I do. But here's the reason why. One, the reason for this awful run of late, they just haven't been hitting, especially with runners in scoring position. They might not have won last night, but they did start to hit. 7 runs, 14 hits, 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position, which isn't great, but it's still, they did get a timely hit or two. Really, I mean, the loss was a bullpen implosion, which really hasn't been a Yankee thing this year. Their bullpen's been very good. So I do think that when I say now, I mean like over the next week or so is going to be the time to buy the Yankees, but I wouldn't be playing against them at this point. I think they've bottomed out. They're actually an underdog in this game, which I thought was very surprising that they were, I think you can get them at plus 105, maybe even plus 110 now. So I just think the value on the Yankees is too much to pass up because they still have all the talent in the world on this team. You would have to think they'll figure it out. So my lean for this game is Yankees plus money. But I think the better bet is going to be to bet the Yankees in like futures to win the AL, to win the World Series, those types of markets going forward. The reason I think that is their August schedule is as easy as your and Ariel's July schedule. Like that's how easy the Yankees August schedule is. They should be minus 200 in like more than half of these games. They play 3 at home against the Blue Jays, 3 at home against the Angels, 3 at home against the Rangers. Their road trip is White Sox, Tigers, 2 awful teams, especially the White Sox. They come back home to face the Guardians, who have big-time starting pitching issues. Back home to face the Rockies. You might be at that game, one of those games, if that's the series you're talking about. On the road against the Nationals and then at home against the Cardinals. That is so easy for a month-long schedule that I think you got to start buying the longer-term stuff with the Yankees. So lean for tonight's game. As far as the starting pitching is concerned here, I think you'd be splitting hairs to find like Crawford, Stroman. I can see, pros and cons of both. I think the matchup's pretty even, but right now I'm buying the Yankees. I'm taking that plus money if I'm going to bet this game tonight. But the better bet is to start jumping in on the long-term stuff with the Yankees because one final thing, Cal, this is the Yankees. They're not going to sit around the next 5 days. It's not even like I think they have real needs or need to improve anywhere, but the Yankees never sit still at the trade deadline. They'll go get someone, and maybe it's just to mix things up a little bit, get some new blood in there. But I expect them to have a huge August.
And in that time, I just uploaded my PLL betting report to every single social media outlet. If you guys would like to know what my plays are, please go watch the video. But here, I'll give you guys a sneak peek. Because we got time, Adam. We got all the time. Kyle gave us all the time. And Carmine did too. Okay. So in the marquee game, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. I'm not going to bet the Outlaws. I don't think they're that good, especially not against Boston. So we're going to take the under 25.5 because, well, I'm a degenerate like that. And I enjoy the pain. And then also today's 5:30 p.m. Eastern game, Chaos huge favorites. So, of course, I like the underdog, plus 1.5, the Redwoods. And then if you want the Sunday plays, you guys have to go watch the video. Adam Trigger, I'm waiting for some questions to generate in the chat because I know that there's a lot. And before we get to them, we're going to give you another 12 minutes to break down your other game that you wanted to hit on, and that is the Marlins. You talked about garbage teams. Now, I haven't watched baseball in almost 3 weeks. But they're playing the Brewers. And last I looked, the Marlins not doing so hot. They might as well be a team named the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, they're just as bad. The Marlins, it's funny that you led in with that because, they're playing good baseball right now. But I don't think I've ever seen this before. This was a team that made the playoffs last year. And this organization pretty much gave up on this team this year in April. To the point where I believe front office people got fired for that because of outwardly being like, yeah, we're just done this year. 4 weeks into a 6-month season. But one of the good things that's come of that, well, now, I mean, they were right. They were right. This team is, they didn't bounce back at all. They're completely out of it. But they've been out of it for a long time. So you're now starting to see some younger guys get into the mix. This isn't like a team that's 30 games under 500 that's miserable and not happy to show up to the park every day because they've already gone through they're in the middle of unloading the rest of their sort of top guys, but they've already shuffled it up since the beginning of the season. They've got some younger guys up, and in terms of what they've done lately, Kelly, they've been underdogs in all of these games. They're 6-3 in their last 9 games. Underdogs in all of them, sometimes significant underdogs. Like that whole series with the Orioles, they were significant underdogs. And They're 8-1 against the +1.5 run line in that stretch, which has been playable pretty much every time. And it's pretty much the only reason that this isn't going to make my client card is the books have noticed that. And now suddenly the +1.5, you're seeing it right on your screen right there is -150. So kind of difficult to play that. And I just think the Marlins are still a bad team. And I still don't really trust them to win games. Like I'd prefer to only have them +1.5. So they've unfortunately priced me out in that regard. But, one of the things they also did, which is really not cool, and it's something that baseball teams do, is they manipulate service time for young guys. And specifically Max Meyer, their starter. It's exactly what they did to him. They saw the writing on the wall this year that they weren't going to contend for anything. He was on the team out of spring training in April. 3 fantastic starts, a 0.82 whip across 3 starts, 2.12 ERA, and he got sent back down to the minors. And the only reason for doing something like that to a kid that came up and pitched that well is to have another year of control over his, contract, and it saves the team money, and it gives them, the option to, like, I guess, hold on to him for another year, which is, I think it's shitty, but it is what it is. So now he's back because, they've already sort of, they I believe it's because he'll make less starts or pitch less than half of the season, something like that. But anyway, he's back, and I think he's going to be really good for the rest of the way. His numbers in AAA don't really tell the whole story because he was probably a little annoyed to be down there in the first place. But in the month of July so far, he has an ERA under 1 at AAA Jacksonville. And you go off of the 3-start sample in April, the last month he's had at AAA. It's hard to see him not, pitching extremely well again here. On the other side is Aaron Savale. He's a guy that I like, but he recently got traded from the Rays to the Brewers, and my concern for him is that maybe he's working with a new pitching coach. There might be a little bit of a mechanical issue he's trying to work out. He's walked 9 batters in his last 15.2 innings over the 3 starts since being traded, and he's given up 10 runs. Only 8 of them earned, but still 10 runs conceded. To me, that's like, he has had really good underlying metrics with the Rays. So to me, that's maybe something mechanical. And of course, when you're working with a new pitching coach like he is, it might take a little bit more time to identify it, to work it out. They're not familiar with each other. He's not as familiar with the catchers that are now catching him. So he's someone that in the short term, I would look to. I don't necessarily like dying to play against him, but that's a concern. So here for me, the guy in the chat, one of our viewers in the chat said the Marlins have been awesome. They've been a money machine the past couple weeks. I don't see why you wouldn't continue to ride them. Again, the +1.5 being at -150 is a little steep, but maybe do what our old pal Dave Koken always used to say and just, kind of run line, money line, split it so you've got yourself a little bit of a +1. But the Marlins have been playing good ball, and Max Meyer is the real deal, so I don't see why not again today.
Shout out Dave Koken. Been thinking about him a lot lately. I doubt he's watching, but if he is, Dave, we love you. Thank you for all of the knowledge that you have shared with us over the years. Okay, Andrew Wojcik wants to know, Trig, Tigers, Scooball on the mound. Break down this game for us.
All right, I'll start going into rapid fire mode. I had my long-winded, so you can put me on the clock now. 2 things. I don't like the Tigers here for 2 reasons. One, I think Joe Ryan is as good as Tariq Skubal. I know Skubal's, having the better season. He has more accolades, but there's not much separating him and Joe Ryan. And 2, the Twins just got 2 key players back. Royce Lewis played last night. Jose Miranda will likely be in the lineup tonight. I don't think that's really, factored into the short-term numbers here. So I'm not dying to go against Skubal, but the Twins are getting better, and I don't know that that's fully reflected in the price. So it's a tough one for me. Probably Twins or pass, just where I have the 2 teams rated.
Twins or pass in the Tigers-Twins game. Our good friend Keith Landry wants a minor league baseball play. Do you have any of those?
I'm ready. What do you got, Keith? Oh, he wants a minor league play for today. Yeah, I'll throw one out there. Let me just pull up my expected pitchers. So the way I do minor league baseball, I look at where I have hitters power rated, and then I have a pitcher ranking that I look at, and I'll look for an undervalued lineup with a pitcher that I have rated pretty highly. So St. Paul is one. Like Zebby Matthews is a guy I've been sort of looking to play on. So this is Twins organization. So St. Paul is the Twins AAA team. They're playing the Royals AAA team. The only concern is that they've won all 3 games already this week, which means that Omaha's bullpen, who's been really, really good, probably Omaha's been one of the best teams at AAA all season. Their bullpen is elite, and they've got their better bullpen arm. So I don't know if that'll be a play for me, but Daniel Lynch is throwing for Omaha. I could see a low-scoring game there, so maybe the under in Omaha St. Paul for one. A second one, a lot of teams haven't announced pitchers yet. That's the thing with AAA. They kind of announce them as the day goes along. So, a team that I'll probably look to play against a little bit is Reno. Reason being, Reno just traded Devison De Los Santos to the Marlins. He, at the time, at the time of the trade, was the best hitter, in my opinion, from a numbers perspective this season in AAA. So he's now coming out of the Reno lineup. I don't think the numbers will fully adjust to that right away. So maybe whoever is Reno's playing against, look to play them because they were kind of red hot before that, and they're probably a little bit overvalued in the market.
All right. No more questions in the chat for Trig. At least not yet. If you guys have one for Trig, please drop it. Again, wagertalk.com/odds. You can check all of the money lines on these baseball plays because at WagerTalk, we think it's very important that you guys get the best of the number. Adam, break down another MLB game for me.
Yeah, I'll talk about another one that was close. We'll go back to your Chicago White Sox, Kelly. Of course, they're another one of these teams.
I'm never going to live that down. Thanks, Steve Merrill.
They're another one of these teams that so with the bad teams, unless they're playing another bad team, I typically really only want them to on the +1.5 run line. If it's hard to ask these teams like, the White Sox come into play today 27-79. I mean, that is just so bad, right? Like, it's hard to rely on a team that's 27-79 to have to win a game. However, when you can get the 1.5, the reality is a lot of baseball games land 1, right? It's not John Murray NFL games not landing 1. It's baseball. I think close to, over a quarter of Major League Baseball games finish in a 1-run game. So there's definite value when you can get the +1.5 at a playable number. In this case, it's a little bit higher than I would have hoped, but this matchup certainly favors. There are things that favor the White Sox here. The first being Eric Fed pitching at home. His home road splits are fantastic this year. He's quietly been one of the White Sox best starting pitchers. He's a guy that I watched extensively last year when he was in the KBO pitching for the NC Dinos. Kind of reinvented himself, added a sweeper. He won the MVP in Korea, which is extremely hard to do for a pitcher. Was the best pitcher in that league by far last year, and it's translated to the big leagues. He's been really good. And if you look at his home road splits, his home splits are significantly better. The Mariners, I think, are going to be one of the more overpriced teams. I think that, I'm hearing on Twitter, they traded for Randy Arozarena from your other team, Cal, the Rays, traded Randy Arozarena to the Mariners. I don't see how that, he's been a little bit hot lately and stuff, but I don't really think that moves the needle a ton. This is still a team that really can't hit. Yes, they put up 8 runs in the first inning last night, but against Drew Thorpe, who's, a young kid, he's going to have bad starts like that. So I think the Mariners on the road here are kind of way overvalued in this spot. If the White Sox +1.5 was about 20 cents cheaper, it probably makes my client card at -140. It's a lot of juice to pay there, but that's another one. I would give the White Sox a look at bouncing back from that horrific performance last night.
Okay, B Daddy. Oh, no, we'll go to David Talk first. Does Blake Snell show out against Colorado? Usually that is where teams show out against the Rockies. Your thoughts, Trig?
I mean, it's kind of now or never. And if, they are home. So the Rockies are an interesting team as well. This is even something, Cal, as someone that, even the fair weather baseball fans know that the Rockies play much better at Coors Field, right? I think that's pretty much a known fact at this point. But what's being a little bit buried this year, because the Rockies are another one, 38-66, just absolutely horrendous team. but they have been so much better this year at Coors Field that, and now they're on the road. So what does that tell you? They have been just that much worse on the road. And the offensive numbers have been just atrocious. So Blake Snell, of course, this is a guy that the Giants went out and got to be the ace of their staff. It's hard to hold his numbers against him this year because, some of this is the Giants rushed him back from an injury in the spring. And then he's had like 2 different injuries this year. So I'm pretty much willing to I'm not going to judge him on his season long numbers right now because so many of those were, while he was hurt, so on and so forth. But this is one scenario where I will look at the small sample because his last 2 starts, 7 innings of shutout ball against the Twins. And then, another quality start last time out against the Dodgers, 6 innings, 2 runs. The strikeout stuff hasn't really come back yet, but it probably will. So I would say that he probably pitches pretty well. The Rockies cannot hit on the road. They haven't all year. I don't know what you're going to do with, the $2 favorite there, but, it's hard to see them not winning this game. And I would say, I think you can almost.
I think our producer Dan is already mentally at the California Redwoods game because he let you go way longer than 90 seconds.
Yeah, hold on, Kelly. One more. It's hard. It's hard to not. It's hard to not see. It's hard to not see the Giants sweeping this doubleheader. There you go. So maybe just parlay both legs of the doubleheader. They need both of them. They're playing 2 games. They've got Hayden Birdsong in the next game, who just had 12 strikeouts against the Rockies, and I doubt they figure him out. So maybe it's a doubleheader sweep for the Giants.
I'll just go.
Ding, 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 ding. All right. B Daddy wants to know thoughts on Cleveland versus Philadelphia in regards to the total, which currently sets at 9 on the WagerTalk odds screen.
I'd be terrified to bet an under with these 2 teams only because both offenses have been poor lately, and as we know, these are 2 pretty good offenses. Like if you're looking at the entire season, these are 2 teams that can hit, especially the Phillies. But the Guardians, from a hitting for average standpoint, have been fantastic. It's just both teams have been cold, and then the 2 pitchers, Carrasco and Tyler Phillips, who's been really good since being called up, I think probably has a little bit of regression in his future. I didn't see him coming up and having a sub-1 whip, so I'd play the over here. I just think that someone's due to put up a couple crooked numbers.
Couple crooked numbers. Last question in the chat from our good friend Titan CT. Any thoughts on the Padres?
The Padres are a really, really good team. I got to give my buddy Aaron Kidd a shout out here. He's been telling me for 2 months that this is the best team in the National League. It's not close. And I got to be honest, everything I've watched Major League Baseball wise since coming out of the All-Star break suggests that's probably true. I don't know how you bet against them at this point. I stupidly played against them on Thursday, Kelly. I took the 1.5 and I got no hit by Dylan Cease. They are they're on fire right now. I don't really want to bet against the Orioles at home, who kind of need a win. They've really been scuffling, and it's a spot where they desperately need a win. But there's just no way I'm betting against San Diego right now, especially not at this price. The Padres are just absolutely rolling. They're minus 110. They've got the better pitcher on the mound here. I don't see how you step in front of that.
All right. His name is Adam Trigger. He's one of our favorite guys over at WagerTalk. And that's all I got for you guys. Again, Trig 33-14 since middle of June. 70%. That is almost 70 unit run he is up in Major League Baseball. Trig, tell me what else you've got up over at wagertalk.com for today, for tomorrow, for the rest of the season, for football season, because that is right around the corner.
Yeah, so I think everyone's got the football special up where you get, the rest of the baseball season for free if you buy the football season. So that's one good special. I have a 5% play in Major League Baseball tonight. I had one last night on the Reds. It got there in extra innings, a good sweat in that one. The only thing I've played so far today is my 5% play in Major League Baseball, which is in one of the night games. I may add something else, haven't decided yet, but I have a very strong opinion in Major League Baseball, and I decided, you know what? I hit a 5%er last night. Things are rolling good. I'll try for another one tonight. So 5% MLB play up now, wt.buzz/AT.
Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI on social media. Maybe one day I'll get him to fulfill his Instagram requirements. This has been Wager Talk's last call. I don't know if I'm going to be here next weekend. I may be in Denver the following weekend. I've got some stuff that I got to work out scheduling wise, but if I'm not here, one of our fearless leaders from the production side of things, either Joe Ranieri or Dan Newbert, will be there. We appreciate you guys always hanging out with us on a beautiful Saturday morning in the chat box. Good luck today on all of your wagers, and we'll see you guys next week.